Union is yet another option that you have in T-SQL, and as you can tell as we're moving through these, there's a lot of power in this language and there's a lot of options. So just kind of pack all these into your brain right now and just go through and read through Transact SQL, look at some of the various commands and so forth, because if you need to get there, you can probably do it with Transact SQL. This thing is incredibly flexible language. So let's talk about unions here. What happens when we want to combine the results of two or more queries? Now, a little bit later on in the course, I don't know if you've seen it yet, I don't think so, intersect and accept will tell us how to see differences between two tables. But with union, I just want to run two or more queries and get all the results back in one single result set that I can order the queries, results, whatever I want to do. So it's going to include all the rows that belong to all the queries in the union statements. Now, by default, duplicate rows are removed. So this is the same as a select distinct by default. Now, you can use the all keyword to include duplicate records, and I'll demonstrate that for you in just a minute. And by the way, the demo code that you see, you can find it out there in your working files folder, conveniently, brilliantly named Understanding Union Examples. Now, the number and order of the columns must be the same in all the queries, and once again, the best way to understand union is just to jump out there and see it happen. So once again, SQL Server Management Studio, I have connected to my SQL Server. I'll run a new query. I will connect to AdventureWorks 2012. Now, we're going to reach in and use a lot of the tricks that we've learned so far. So we're going to use a whole bag of tricks. We're going to select the last name and the first name, and we're going to use our select into command. We're going to select into a table called test1, and we're going to come from person.person, and then we're going to add a little where clause here. Where last name, we're going to use our like, is like Del, starts with DEL, and has any letters after that. Okay, so we're going to create two little test tables, and then we're going to do a union on them so you can see it. So we're going to create the first one, test1, and we're only going to include the last names like start with DEL, and we're going to get the results from the person table, load them into test1. So I'll execute that. 4 rows were affected, and now let's create a table called test2. All right, and there's test2, last name, first name, and this time we're going to do name like ABE. So it starts with ABE, and so I'll execute that. And just like that, if I go out here and look in tables, I should see there's my test1 and test2 tables that I just created. Now we're going to do a union on these two tables. I'm going to delete that query, and in the code examples, you'll see all this code kind of running down through there with comments on it to help you understand it. Look in the working files folder for that. So now let's talk about how to use this. Well, I'll select last name, first name from test1. Then I will put the union keyword, and then I will select last name, first name from test2. Now, if I run that, and it's going to tell me it can't see some things, and don't worry about that. That has to do with some of the funkiness of the way the IntelliSense is working here. But notice if I execute this, look what happened. I got Abel and Abercrombie, okay? That probably came from test2 because that's the A's. And then I got Delaney's on the last name that came from test1. Notice that I got my test2 results first. That's because the Query Optimizer looked at this last, and so since it was already there, it dumped it out, and then it went and got this, okay? Don't worry about all that right now. You can dig into how it's thinking later. But notice we should have more than that, right? We should have something like 8. Well, let's put the all keyword in there and execute it again. Notice now we have 8 records, right? But we got duplicates in here. We got 2 of Luca and 3 of Kim. So that is basically the union. Notice we have to match at least data types on the columns on both, put the union in between them, and we can union multiple queries together. Now, what's really neat about this, I want you to watch this. I'll order by, and I'm putting some in all caps so you can see them and some in lower caps on these keywords. It'll work either way. But I'm going to order that by the last name. Well, let's order it by the first name so you can see what's happening here. So I'm going to order this by the first name. Now I want you to watch what happens. Notice we're ordering by first name, and it's actually mixing, if you see last name and Abercrombie and then more D's, it's mixing the result set between the two tables to put them in order the way I've asked for it. So it's treating both tables' result sets like one giant result set. Now, some of you are asking, well, that's really cool, Mark, but why would I do something that stupid? Well, think about this. What if test 1 is a list of my employees, test 2 is a table of all my customers, and we're having some sort of celebration because the company's turning 100 years old or 50 years old or whatever, and I need a list of all my employees, all my customers, and their addresses because we're going to send these invitations out and tell them what a big time we're going to have, right? This does it for me very easily, and it puts them all in alphabetical order. I don't care if they're customers or if they're employees. I just want names, addresses, and I want to send an invitation out. So lots of times you'll come up against this kind of need for data, but the union statement will join the results of two queries into one result set and let you order by and do all kind of cool stuff to it. So go play and go read about the union statement.